All right, welcome everybody to another segment of Indie News. This is your host, Mr. BDA, and I'm here with King Bucho. Let's start with the first item in question here for this specific video, and that is Shakur Stevenson was on the Sean Porter podcast, and he made some revelations. He is now conceding that he is the B-side and that he wants to make the fight happen. Now, there's a couple of things about that. First of all, now these American fighters, they can talk a lot now. They love to call each other out, and boxing fans take that to mean that an offer was sent, that there's an actual negotiations ongoing, which isn't the case. So anybody can call anybody else out, and a lot of fans believe it that, it's a call-out. Then if the fight fails to materialize, the fighter who did the calling out is seen as a superior fighter because the other guy didn't accept the terms, according to them. But in this case, Shakur Stevenson is firing the first shot, so to speak, by saying, okay, look, Tank Davis, everyone's saying he's the ace side, he's the face of boxing, he makes the most money. I'll do whatever I need to. I'll accept whatever offer to take this fight. What do you think? Do you think this is an actual step up in terms of the PR war, or do you think it stays about the same?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. I think Shakur's, he wants to fight Tank Davis. He knows there's not a lot of options. And maybe Shakur sees something in Tank Davis that he can exploit. So I wouldn't be surprised if he actually wants this fight.
I mean, Shakur Stevenson has done a lot of calling out, and the narratives out there are that it's everyone else that's avoiding him. That being said, again, it's difficult to ascertain whether that's always true or that's always the case. But when it comes to Tank Davis, he really appears to want to fight him. If we just base it off how much he's talking about Tank Davis, and this new revelation that he's willing to concede certain things, I'm assuming he's talking about financial terms, because that leads us to the question, when he's talking about, well, I'm the B-side and I'll concede to whatever you want, is he referring to some sort of weight clause or rehydration clause? Because let's remember, Shakur Stevenson is a very big lightweight. Shakur Stevenson looks like a welterweight. He looks huge, which there is a legitimate point to that. I mean, we've been talking about weight bullies for a while now, and the counter argument was always, well, there's no such thing as weight bullying. Now that Tank Davis says it, all of a sudden now people start to believe it. Be that as it may, do you think Tank Davis would try to saddle him with some sort of weight stipulation? And do you think Shakur Stevenson should take it, and is he good enough to overcome those type of things to beat Tank Davis?
No, if the fight takes place at 135, I don't think there would be any rehydration clauses. Tank would just look completely stupid doing that. Shakur has been able to make weight. I don't think anybody has called Shakur a weight bully. Well, some people have. I just don't see how Tank could pull this off and not tarnish his reputation.
Well, that you bring up a good point about tarnishing reputations, because again, a lot of the narratives on Twitter, a lot of the modus operandi that these people have is that, well, the first guy who does the call out has the advantage if the fight fails to materialize, because in their eyes, the guy who does the calling out is the one who's serious about it. Whereas the guy who ultimately declines the fight, or even if he doesn't really officially decline it, but if the fight fails to materialize, the guy who got called out is the one at fault. So now within those terms, within those parameters, it is Shakur Stevenson who's throwing the gauntlet and saying, hey, it's the ball's in your court, make it happen. And if Tank Davis doesn't make it happen, why would he make it happen? I mean, think about it. Why wouldn't this fight materialize? What other fight out there is better for Shakur Stevenson, for Tank Davis? Why, a Ryan Garcia rematch? First of all, where would that take place? That wouldn't be taking place at 135 or 140. And again, the narrative is that Tank Davis is a little guy, so we're not going to see him at 147 anytime soon. What other fight is there for, that's what Shakur Stevenson said. He said, this is a fight to make at lightweight. Do you agree with that, Bujo?
Yeah, in another interview, I read this from Ring Magazine. He says, he needs me as much as I need him. He's talking about Tank Davis. Mm-hmm. So, and this is true, you're right. There's not a lot of options at this point. Ryan Garcia and Haney are supposed to eventually fight each other. We don't know what's happening with Teofimo Lopez. Ryan Garcia says he wants to eventually fight Teofimo Lopez, and we know Teofimo Lopez already has a plan. He's gonna be fighting Hitchens, probably, and then he's gonna move up in weight and fight Jaron Ennis at 147. So he's locked up on that side. And then you have Garcia and Haney, who already have plans of fighting on the same card in May and then fighting each other in October. So those are big names that Shakur Stevenson won't be able to fight. Is Keyshawn Davis a big fight for Shakur Stevenson? Not really, not at this point. Tank Davis is the biggest fight that he can make at 135.
Yeah, because he's again barring Ryan Garcia, who's not a lightweight anymore. There's no other fight, even the Lomachenko fight. I don't think it would do that well as well as Stevenson versus Tank Davis. And I'm not saying Tank Davis versus Shakur Stevenson is gonna be this big box office bonanza, but it's two guys closer to their age, in their primes, than a guy like Lomachenko, who's his mid-30s and who hasn't fought since he fought Kambosos in 2024. What was it, the summer? So this is a much more interesting fight. It would attract a whole new generation of fight fans as well. And Tank Davis is up against it because his opposition has been severely lacking. No matter how hard his fans and his acolytes try to say that his resume is all that, it ain't. I mean, come on, let's just go back to 2022. Rolly Romero, a prospect who should have had a loss, that robbery against Jackson Marinas. Then he fights Ryan Garcia. That's the only name that people wanted to see him fight. That's the only fight of the only pay-per-view event which has been financially successful as far as we know, because again, neither Showtime nor PBC ever released the numbers officially. So that Ryan Garcia fight on top of that has an asterisk, because already Ryan Garcia was considered just an Instagram fighter, and he was considered inexperienced compared to Tank Davis. And even then, Tank Davis had to saddle him. So he had to saddle him with a rehydration clause and a catch weight. Since that, before that, Hector Luis Garcia, then Frank Martin, who's also another prospect, and now he's fighting Roach, who's a 130-pounder. I mean, these aren't the fight. I mean, all that is better than fighting Shakur Stevenson, and we already know now, finally, people are casting aspersions or battling back against the narrative that Tank Davis against anybody makes money, or that he's making more money than all these other lightweights. It's turning out that it might be true that he's making perhaps more money, but not by that much. He would definitely be better off fighting a guy like Shakur Stevenson and probably get to the 10 million mark if they can pull it off. So
exactly. And for all these Tank Davis fans, Tank Davis has said that this is his last year in boxing. 2025 is the last year, and I hope that Tank Davis's fans want Tank Davis to have at least one big fight this year since he's gonna retire. What are the options again? It's only Shakur Stevenson. That's the only big fight he can get right now. A Lomachenko fight, it's a big fight too, but it's not as big as Shakur Stevenson because Lomachenko's old. That's just a fact. And if Tank Davis if he beats Lomachenko, is he really the first guy who's gonna be beating Lomachenko? No, Lomachenko already lost a few times, and so a big win for Tank Davis would be a Shakur Stevenson win. That's just my opinion.
This is the fight to make. There's no other fight that makes sense for Tank Davis. I mean, this would be a big event. He would be finally challenging himself against a top lightweight, a guy who's borderline pound for pound. There's no other fight. I mean, listen, like I was trying to illustrate earlier, he's been fighting subpar opposition, and he hasn't even been making that much money doing so. You know, his fans are pretending that he's making 8 million or 10 million per fight. Even if he's getting a cut of the gate, which is the only thing that he does well at, because we know that pay-per-view, he's not doing that well. I sincerely doubt that he's getting 10 mil per fight. So the Shakur Stevenson fight is the fight to make. The ball's in his court now when it comes to, or at least in the court of public opinion. And he needs to respond, and he needs to take care of business against Lamont Roach. So we'll see what happens with that, but I'm very excited about this new development. And hopefully, that's the other thing, last thing. This fight could potentially be made because Shakur Stevenson, remember, is now with Matchroom. He's now fighting under Matchroom. He's also, which is allied to the Sheik, who's got the deep pockets to make the fights happen. Last year, everyone was bemoaning the fact that Canelo wouldn't bend the knee to the Sheik and he didn't want to hold his hand. Well, now they worked out a deal. Money talks, and Canelo will be fighting Crawford under the Riyadh Season umbrella. Could we see something similar happen with Tank Davis, especially if the Tank Davis-Lamont Roach fight, delivers horrible numbers, pay-per-view numbers, which it probably will. And also, I'm hearing that it's not selling out over there in Texas. So after those numbers come back, he'll probably have his back against the wall and say, hey, I have to take this offer. So what I'm saying is, the odds look good that maybe this fight materializes.
Oh, I hope so. It's a great fight, and let's see if it happens.
All right, guys, you let us know what you think in the comment section below. Do you think Tank Davis will step up to the challenge? Is this an empty challenge from Shakur Stevenson? Let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit the like. Don't forget to sign up for Patreon for free. You get free videos. It always works out if you sign up nonetheless, even though it's free, because it really helps us out. And you can donate whatever you want if you sign up.